Hello. In this video, I will be talking about what it was like to pick up a million cigarette butts. And I will also be sharing some interesting things that I found and learned while doing this project. About a third of the cigarettes that I found were yellow. Another third were white. And another third were so old that they had turned gray. I did this project for many reasons. One of those reasons was to help raise awareness of the fact that cigarette butts are the most commonly littered item in the world. I turned my backyard into a giant ashtray to help bring attention to this problem. And if you think that someone turning their backyard into an ashtray is crazy, I think that turning everyone's home into one is even crazier. I wanted to do something about all of the litter in my area. And not just the litter that was in plain sight, but also that was hidden in the forest due to illegal dumping. Even litter that is in plain sight can be difficult to see if there's so much litter around that it just blends in with the background. But when I started walking instead of driving, I had no choice but to start paying more attention to the litter on the ground, because if I wasn't paying attention to it, I could easily trip and fall over it. So I started cleaning up the littered streets where I live, and I also started sharing what I was doing online. And in 2020, I decided to start this project of picking up a million cigarette butts. And another reason I wanted to do this project is because a lot of people don't even consider cigarette butts to be litter, due to how small and seemingly insignificant they are. And I feel that if people became more aware, and stopped being okay with seeing cigarette butts littered on the ground, then they would also stop being okay with seeing much bigger things littered on the ground. Like plastic bottles, plastic bags, clothing, televisions, chairs, couches, refrigerators, and mattresses. In addition to picking up a million cigarette butts, I also picked up any other litter I found during this project that was related to smoking, because I was curious to see how much other smoking litter I would end up finding during this project, and what would be the most common type. And what you are about to see is all of the other smoking litter that I stumbled across while searching for a million cigarette butts. I found over 1,000 lighters. Some of the lighters were still in one piece, but some of them were so old and broken down that all I really found was an old rusty top. So this means that on average, for every 1,000 cigarette butts I found on the ground, I would also find at least one lighter. I also found a lot of empty cigarette packs. I found over 5,000 cigarette packs in total, which means that I found an average of about one pack for every 200 cigarette butts. I found cigarette packs from 32 different brands. And even though Marlboro is the most popular brand in the world, the brand that I found the most litter from was actually Newport. I also found a lot of packs that were so old and deteriorated that I couldn't even tell what brand they were. But the most controversial pack I found was a pack that's actually been banned in several countries. But cigarette packs were far from being the most common form of litter I found. It turns out that cigar packaging is actually responsible for far more litter. Because although cigars may not be as popular as cigarettes, cigarettes are usually sold in packs of 20 or more, while cigars tend to be sold in much smaller packs. And because of this, I actually ended up finding over 5,000 cigar packs as well. I found cigar packs from 39 different brands, and the most common brand was Black and Mild. And because cigars are also sold individually, I ended up finding over 12,000 individually wrapped cigar wrappers on the ground. And the most common brand was also Black and Mild. But cigar packaging still wasn't the most common thing that I found. You know those plastic filter tips on the ends of cigars? I found enough of these small filters to completely fill up a trash can. And they were actually the most common form of smoking litter I found after cigarette butts. And the most common brand of plastic filter tip was Black and Mild. But cigarettes and cigars aren't the only things that people are smoking these days. I also found over 1,000 pieces of litter related to marijuana, like paper filter tips, plastic wrappers from rolling papers, Mylar bags containing edibles and medibles, and even blunt air fresheners. I also found dozens of pieces of litter related to crack smoking, like crack pipes and rolled up pieces of chorboy. I also found over 1,000 pieces of litter from smokeless tobacco products, including hundreds of tobacco cans, some of which were still intact, while others were so old and broken down that all I found was an old rusty lid. I also found chewing tobacco pouches, snooze pouches, and hundreds of pouches from India. I also found thousands of pieces of litter related to vaping, including vape pens and e-cigarettes in a wide variety of different colors, shapes, and sizes. I also found a lot of vape pods, vape cartridges, vape covers, vape parts and pieces, vape juices, and of course a small mountain or volcano of vape packaging. I also found hundreds of cigarettes on the ground that weren't even smoked, including full packs, some of which were no longer smokable, including full packs. I also found a lot of unsmoked cigars, some of which were still individually wrapped, and some of them had pretty much turned to mush, and I found one unsmoked joint. To view this project in more detail, please visit my website, Picking Up a Zillion Pieces of Litter, where I took the time to photograph everything so that you can easily see exactly how many pieces of litter I found from each brand. You can also check out other cleanup projects that I've done in the past, or that I will do in the future. This project was not easy. Picking up anything a million times is going to be hard on the back. The counting alone in this project would have driven a lot of people insane. And within the first few days, I already heard all the jokes. But despite all the physical and mental challenges, this project was still a lot easier than it should have been. I imagined that it would take at least a few years to pick up 1,000,000 cigarette butts. But I was shocked to see just how many I could find in a day when I really went looking for them. Sometimes I could find up to 1,000 in an hour. And by working on this project non-stop, it took me less than 6 months to pick up 1,000,000 cigarette butts. Plus, all of the other smoking litter that was in this video, which I hope demonstrates not only how big of a problem this is, but that each of us can make a difference. Whether it's by picking up cigarettes that you see littered on the ground, no longer throwing cigarettes on the ground, or by helping to raise awareness Another reason I did this project is because a lot of people are unaware that cigarette butts are made of plastic. And if you want physical proof that they're made of plastic, take a cigarette butt and remove the paper wrapper. Stretch it out so that it can be laid out evenly on a microscope slide. Now view it through a microscope and zoom in until you see a spider web of plastic. Tobacco companies may try to tell people that this isn't a problem because cigarette butts will eventually break down. And while it's true that cigarette butts will eventually break down, this is not a good thing. When plastics break down, they may no longer be visible to the naked eye, but through a microscope we see that old plastics that seem to have disappeared years ago still exist as microplastics, which are toxic, and due to their small size are easy to consume unknowingly. And they can easily be scattered all across the world. And when I looked at all the other smoking litter that I found more closely, I realized that over 97% of it contained plastic. Empty lighters made mostly of plastic. Cigarette packs wrapped in plastic. Cigar packs usually made of plastic. And as you can see, there's no telling where little plastic wrappers like this can end up when they're thrown on the ground and left outside in the wind. Smokeless tobacco products, sold in plastic pouches or plastic cans. Marijuana products, concealed in special smell-proof plastic bags, and even containing plastic throwaway straws. And as vaping becomes more popular, cigarette butts littered on the ground will likely be replaced with plastic vape pods littered on the ground. And last but not least, plastic filter tips. And there are so many of these out there that I encourage people who smoke not to buy cigars that have these filter tips on them, and to use your power as consumers to force big companies to stop producing them. In the past, smoking was often portrayed as being cool. And a lot of people were under the impression that cigarettes were biodegradable and made out of natural materials such as cotton, and therefore it was cool to just throw cigarettes on the ground, as long as you put them out with your shoe so they wouldn't be a fire hazard. And to this day, cigarette butts are often referred to as the last acceptable form of littering. Millions, if not billions, of cigarette butts get thrown on the ground every single day. And unless somebody comes along and picks them up, they will likely pile up until it eventually rains so hard that they get washed into storm drains, where the plastic, as well as other toxic and even carcinogenic materials within them, will go on to poison the water that some species live in and other species drink. In closing, I'd like to remind people that it actually took a very long time for everyone to realize that smoking was even harmful to smokers. And it took even longer for people to realize that smoking around others was harmful to others. And a lot of people still don't seem to realize that throwing toxic and non-biodegradable cigarettes into the environment is harmful to the environment. And not only can cigarettes cause first and even second-hand smoke, but if left in the environment, they can go on to cause harmful third-hand effects, as well as fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, etc. So if you're going to smoke, please be cool and don't litter, because there is no Planet B, and we need to stop treating Planet A like it's Planet Ashtray. The best solution to this problem would be for everyone to quit smoking. And the next best solution would be for everyone to at least quit littering. And instead of raising the price of a pack of cigarettes, or raising the penalty for littering, raising awareness will ultimately do more good. Because none of us will live forever, but what we leave behind will impact the world long after we're gone. And the greatest thing that we can leave behind is a generation who is more aware.